Captain Maya Torres stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty and watched the stars through the main window. Her ship was one of the fastest in the human fleet, but today she felt trapped. The message from Earth High Command was clear. All human. Ships must return to human space immediately. The Galactic Council had voted to cut off all contact with Earth and its colonies. Maya touched the communication device on her wrist. A soft blue light appeared and showed the face of her friend Admiral Lisa Chen back on Earth. Lisa looked tired and worried. Her usually neat black hair was messy, and her brown eyes showed fear. "Maya, you need to know what really happened at the council meeting," Lisa said quietly. "This is not about our expansion into new star systems. This is about fear." Maya listened carefully as Lisa explained the real reason for the council's decision. 3 weeks ago, human scientists had created a new way to send messages across space instantly. This new technology did not need the Council's communication networks. For the first time in galactic history, a species could talk to its colonies without asking permission from the Council. The Council controlled all communication between star systems. They decided which species could talk to each other and when. They read every message and controlled all trade agreements. Humanity's new technology threatened their power over the entire galaxy. "There's more," Lisa continued. "Our military tactics in the recent border wars have been too successful. We've won every battle against the Zephyrian raiders using strategies the Council has never seen before. They're scared that we're becoming too strong too quickly." Maya felt anger growing in her chest. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago as a junior member. They had followed every rule and paid every tax. Human colonies had never attacked other species first. They had only defended themselves when raiders tried to steal their resources or capture their people as slaves. A soft chime sounded on the bridge. Maya's communication officer, Lieutenant Kelly Adams, looked up from her station with surprise. "Captain, we're receiving a coded message from Nexus Prime. It's coming through an old elf communication channel." Maya walked to Kelly's station and looked at the screen. The message was written in ancient elf script, but Maya had learned to read it during her diplomatic training. The message was short but clear. "The vote was not unanimous. Some of us remember friendship. Trust the moon singer. Danger comes with the morning star." Maya knew who had sent this message. Counselor Lyra Lay Moonwhisper was the elf representative on the Galactic Council. She had always been kind to human diplomats and had voted against the harshest restrictions on human expansion. The message meant that not all council members agreed with the decision to isolate humanity. The bridge door opened and Commander Susan Walsh entered. Susan was Maya's second-in-command and her closest friend. Her red hair was tied back in a tight ponytail, and her green eyes showed the same worry that Maya felt. "Captain, our sensors are picking up movement in the outer system," Susan reported. 3 council enforcement fleets are moving toward human space. They'll reach the border in 6 hours. Maya looked at the tactical display. The council fleets were massive. Each one contained over 200 ships from different species. She could see the sleek silver vessels of the Elf Navy, the dark angular ships of the Krillian Hive, and the blue organic-looking craft of the Etherian Empire. They're not just enforcing a blockade, Maya realized. They're positioning for an invasion. A new message appeared on the communication screen. This time it came from the Council's official channel. The face of High Chancellor Vexitar appeared. He was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes. His species, the Dominion, had controlled the Council for over 300 years. "Human vessels, you have 12 hours to return to your designated space sectors," Vexitar announced in his cold, mechanical voice. "Any human ship found outside the restricted zone after this time will be considered hostile and destroyed. This decision is final and cannot be appealed." Maya turned off the communication and looked at her crew. 26 humans from different Earth colonies worked on the Liberty's bridge. They all looked at her with trust and confidence, waiting for her orders. "Set course for the Kepler colony," Maya commanded. "Maximum speed." "Captain, that will take us deeper into Council space," Susan warned. "If we're caught, they'll destroy us." Maya smiled for the first time that day. The Kepler colony has the largest human research facility outside Earth. If the Council wants to silence us, they need to know what we've been working on out there, and I think they're going to be very surprised. As the Liberty turned toward Kepler colony, Maya thought about Lyra Lai's message. Other species remembered friendship with humanity. That meant the resistance had already begun. The Council thought they could silence Earth, but they had made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity a common enemy and a reason to fight. The stars outside seemed brighter now as the Liberty jumped to faster-than-light speed. Maya knew that whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same. The Council had tried to silence Earth, but that was just the beginning of the story. Behind them, in the darkness of space, the first Council enforcement ships crossed into human territory. The war for galactic freedom had begun. 3 months had passed since the Council fleet blockaded human space. Captain Maya Torres stood in the hidden research lab deep inside the Kepler colony asteroid. The rock walls around her were covered with glowing screens showing star maps and technical designs. Human and alien scientists worked side by side, something that would have been impossible before the blockade. Dr. Rebecca Stone looked up from her workstation where she was studying ELF crystal technology. Rebecca was a small woman with brown hair and kind eyes, but her mind was one of the sharpest in human space. Next to her stood Arwen Starweaver, a young elf with silver hair and bright blue eyes. Arwen had arrived 2 weeks ago in a damaged scout ship, carrying stolen elf technology and a message from Counselor Lyra Lay. "The combination is working," Rebecca told Maya excitedly. "Human computer systems can boost elf crystal power by 300%. We can create weapons that hit harder than anything the Council has ever seen." Arwen nodded and touched one of the crystal devices on the table. It glowed with soft white light and made the air around it hum with energy. "My teacher Lyra Lay said this would happen. Elf magic and human science are like 2 parts of the same song. Together they make something beautiful and powerful." Maya studied the data on Rebecca's screen. The new weapons could punch through Council shield technology like it was paper. But creating enough of them to arm the human fleet would take months they didn't have. The blockade was already causing problems. Food shipments were running low on the outer colonies, and medical supplies were almost gone. A soft alarm sounded in the lab. Lieutenant Kelly Adams appeared on the communication screen, calling from the Liberty, which was hidden in the asteroid's docking bay. "Captain, we're receiving a coded transmission from inside Council space," Kelly reported. "It's coming from a Krillian ship." Maya hurried to the communications center with Rebecca and Arwen following close behind. The main screen showed the insectoid face of Commander Zarath Vel. Her crystalline exoskeleton reflected the ship's lights, and her 4 arms moved as she spoke. Maya had met Zarath once during peace negotiations and remembered her as intelligent, but cold. "Captain Torres, I am speaking to you against direct orders from my Hive Queen," Zarath said in her clicking voice. "What I have learned cannot wait for official channels. The Council is planning something terrible." The transmission was breaking up due to interference, but Maya could hear the urgency in Zarath's voice. 2 days ago, High Chancellor Vexitar ordered all Krillian bioweapon factories to begin full production. They are creating diseases designed to kill only humans. The weapons will be ready in 6 weeks. Maya felt ice in her stomach. Bioweapons were banned by every galactic treaty. If the Council was willing to use them, they planned to commit genocide against the entire human race. "Why are you telling us this?" Maya asked. Zarath paused for a moment. 3 weeks ago, I watched human medical teams risk their lives to save Krillian miners trapped in a cave-in on Titan Station. Your people could have left my warriors to die, but instead, they crawled into collapsing tunnels to rescue enemies. This is not the behavior of a species that deserves extinction. The transmission ended abruptly. Maya turned to see that Rebecca and Arwen had recorded everything. The proof of the Council's plans would be crucial for convincing other species to join the human cause. "We need to get this information to Admiral Chen on Earth," Maya decided. "But first, we need to establish contact with more resistance cells." Over. The next few hours, coded messages began arriving from across the galaxy. Captain Jennifer Brooks reported that human colonists on New Texas were building hidden weapons factories. Commander Linda Hayes said her ship had made contact with a group of rebel elves who controlled 3 star systems. Most importantly, Admiral Patricia Wells confirmed that several Etherian Empire ships had been secretly supplying human colonies with food and medicine. The resistance was growing, but it was still small compared to the Council's massive military power. Maya knew they needed something that would change the balance of the war completely. That evening, Rebecca called Maya to her lab with excitement in her voice. She had been working with Arwen to combine human artificial intelligence with elf crystal technology. The result was beyond anything either species had imagined. "Watch this," Rebecca said as she activated a small device on her workbench. The crystal began to glow, and suddenly the air above it shimmered. A holographic star map appeared, showing the exact location of every council ship within 50 light years. "The crystals can see through space and time," Arwen explained, "but only for short distances and brief moments. Your computers can extend that range and make the visions last longer. Together, we can see everything the council is doing in real time." Maya stared at the holographic display. Council fleet movements that had been secret were now visible to human forces. She could see supply convoys, patrol routes, and even the locations of hidden council bases. "This changes everything," Maya whispered. "We can predict their attacks before they happen. We can find their weak points and strike where they don't expect us." As if summoned by her words, alarms began ringing throughout the asteroid base. Kelly's voice came over the speakers with urgency. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a council battle group approaching our position. 12 ships including a Dominion dreadnought. They'll be here in 4 hours. Maya looked at the holographic display again. The approaching ships were marked with red indicators showing their weapons and shield strength. For the first time since the blockade began, humanity had a real advantage in the coming battle. "All personnel to battle stations," Maya announced. "It's time to show the Council what happens when they try to silence Earth." The Resistance had found its first real weapon against the Council's superior numbers. The war was about to change in ways that no one could predict. The Council battle group arrived at Kepler Colony exactly when the crystal technology predicted. Captain Maya Torres watched from the command center deep inside the asteroid as 12 enemy ships took positions around their hiding place. The largest vessel was a Dominion dreadnought called the Iron Fist, bristling with weapons that could crack a planet in half. Colonel Amy Foster stood beside Maya, checking her weapon one final time. Amy was a small woman with short blonde hair and scars on her hands from years of combat training. She commanded the colony's defense forces, 300 human soldiers who had trained for this moment for months. "They're scanning the asteroid," reported Lieutenant Kelly Adams from her sensor station. "Standard Council procedure is to demand surrender first, then attack if we refuse." The main screen activated and showed the face of Admiral Thekvar, a tall Dominion officer with silver skin and cold yellow eyes. Behind him, Maya could see the bridge of the Iron Fist with its dark walls and harsh lighting. "Human settlement? You are in violation of Council Containment Protocol 7, Thekvar announced in his mechanical voice. "Surrender immediately and prepare for inspection. Resistance will result in total destruction." Maya stepped forward to respond, but Amy grabbed her arm. "Let me handle this," Amy said with a grin. "I've been waiting 3 months to tell these aliens what I really think of them." Amy activated the communication system and looked directly at Admiral Thekvar. "This is Colonel Amy Foster, commanding officer of Kepler Colony Defense Force. We have a message for the Council. Go find some other species to bully because humanity is done following your orders." Thekvar's yellow eyes narrowed with anger. "You have 10 minutes to reconsider your position. After that, we will demonstrate the price of defying the Council." The transmission ended, and Amy turned to her soldiers. "You all know the plan. The Council thinks we'll fight like every other species they've conquered. They expect us to line up our ships and trade shots until the stronger side wins. But humans don't fight fair, and today they're going to learn why that's a very good thing." Maya watched through the crystal technology display as Council ships moved into attack formation. The enemy was following standard tactics just as Amy had predicted. They would bombard the asteroid with long-range weapons first, then send in boarding parties to capture any survivors. "Phase 1 begins now," Amy announced. Hidden weapon platforms built into the asteroid's surface came online, but instead of firing at the Council ships, they targeted the space around the colony. Thousands of small mines spread out in invisible patterns, creating a deadly web that the Council sensors couldn't detect. The Iron Fist fired first, sending massive energy beams toward the colony. But the beams struck deflector shields that Rebecca Stone had designed using elf crystal technology. The shields held against the attack and reflected some energy back at the Council ships. "Phase 2, Amy called out. Human fighters launched from hidden bays carved into the asteroid's far side. But these weren't normal spacecraft. Each fighter was piloted by a human wearing a new type of armor that combined human technology with elf magic. The pilots could think faster and react quicker than any alien had ever seen. The Council ships tried to target the human fighters, but the small craft moved in patterns that seemed impossible. They twisted and turned through space like they could predict where enemy weapons would fire before the triggers were pulled. Maya watched Admiral Thekvar's face on the communication screen as confusion replaced anger. "How are they moving like that?" he demanded from his bridge crew. "No pilot can fly with such precision." What Thekvar didn't understand was that human pilots weren't just flying by instinct. The crystal technology was showing them exactly where enemy weapons were aimed and when they would fire. The humans could dodge attacks that hadn't even been launched yet. The first Council ship to fall was a Krillian cruiser. Human fighters swarmed around it like angry bees, hitting weak points that normal sensors couldn't find. The cruiser's shields failed, and the ship broke apart in a shower of sparks and debris. "Impossible," Thekvar whispered, as he watched his fleet take damage from fighters that should have been destroyed in the first minute of combat. Then Amy activated Phase 3. The mines that had been scattered around the battlefield suddenly came to life, guided by human artificial intelligence that could calculate trajectories faster than any organic brain. Council ships that thought they were in safe positions suddenly found themselves surrounded by explosions. But the real surprise came when a new ship appeared on the edge of the battle. It was an elf vessel with silver hull and flowing lines that looked more like art than military hardware. On its side was painted a symbol that made Admiral Thekvar step back in shock. "That's the Moonlight Serenade," Maya said with satisfaction. "Counselor Lirelai's personal ship." The elf ship opened communication channels to all vessels in the area. Lirelai's face appeared on screens throughout both fleets. Her long silver hair flowed around her shoulders and her violet eyes glowed with inner light. "I am Counselor Lirelai, Moon Whisper, speaking as a representative of the Elf Collective," she announced in her musical voice. "The collective has voted to withdraw from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We can no longer support an organization that plans genocide against innocent species." Behind Lirelai, Maya could see the bridge of her ship filled with elf warriors in shining armor. These were not diplomats or politicians, but soldiers who had decided to fight alongside humanity. Admiral Thekvar's face turned pale gray. "You are committing treason against the established galactic order," he accused. Lirelai smiled coldly. "The galactic order you speak of is built on fear and oppression. Today that order begins to crumble." The Moonlight Serenade opened fire on the Council fleet with weapons that combined elf magic and human technology. Beams of pure light cut through Council shields, like they were made of paper. The remaining Council ships began to retreat, but the human fighters and elf weapons had damaged their engines. "This is not over," Admiral Thekvar warned as his damaged dreadnought limped away from the battle. "The Council will send larger fleets. You cannot win against the combined might of a dozen species." Amy Foster appeared on the communications screen, beside Maya. "Maybe not," she admitted with a fierce smile. "But we're going to make you pay for every system you take from us. And every species watching this battle will see that the mighty Council can be beaten." As the surviving Council ships disappeared into hyperspace, Maya realized that everything had changed. The victory at Kepler Colony would be remembered as the moment when the Resistance became a real threat to Council power. But she also knew that Admiral Thekvar was right about one thing. The Council would send larger fleets, and the war was just beginning. Standing beside her elf allies and looking at the wreckage of Council ships floating in space, Maya felt hope for the first time in months. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. 2 weeks after the victory at Kepler Colony, Captain Maya Torres found herself in a place she never expected to be. The asteroid base had been transformed into the headquarters of the Galactic Resistance, with representatives from 6 different species working together to plan the overthrow of the Council. General Patricia Wells stood at the center of the main planning room, studying holographic displays that showed Council fleet movements across the galaxy. Patricia was a tall woman with gray hair and steel-blue eyes who had spent 30 years in the human military. Now she commanded forces from species that had been enemies just months before. "The intelligence from Commander Zarath has been confirmed," Patricia announced to the assembled commanders. "The Council is moving their bioweapon production to the fortress world of Garrison Prime. If those weapons are completed, they can sterilize every human world in the galaxy." Maya looked around the room at their unlikely allies. Ellerin Swift Arrow sat near the front, her green elf armor reflecting the lights from the displays. Ellerin commanded scout teams that had mapped every Council secret base within 50 light years. Her rangers moved through space like ghosts, gathering intelligence that kept the Resistance one step ahead of their enemies. Beside Ellerin stood Commander Zarath Vel, the Krillian who had first warned them about the bioweapons. Zarath's crystalline exoskeleton bore new scars from battles against her own people. Half of the Krillian hive had joined the Resistance, but the other half remained loyal to the Council. The civil war among the insectoid warriors was brutal and showed no signs of ending. "The fortress is heavily defended," Zarath reported in her clicking voice. 12 orbital platforms, each with enough firepower to destroy a battle fleet. The Council believes it is impossible to attack. "Then we won't attack it," Maya said with a smile. "We'll steal it." The plan Maya proposed was insane by normal military standards, but the Resistance had learned that normal tactics didn't work against superior numbers. Instead of fighting through the fortress defenses, a small team would use captured Council ship codes to land inside the facility. Once inside, they would plant charges that would destroy the bioweapon laboratories while making it look like an accident. "The team will need to include members from multiple species," Patricia explained. "Human technical skills, elf magic for stealth, and Krillian bio-knowledge to identify the weapon storage areas." Ellerin volunteered immediately. "My rangers have been inside Council facilities before. We know how to move without being detected." Zarath nodded agreement. "I helped design the original fortress layout. The bioweapon labs are in the deepest levels, but there are maintenance tunnels that larger species cannot use." Maya studied the fortress plans on the holographic display. The mission would require perfect timing and enormous luck, but if they succeeded, it would delay the Council's genocide plans by months and give the Resistance time to build larger fleets. "There's something else," Zarath added quietly. "My second-in-command, Talanis Keth, has been sending coded messages from inside the fortress. She leads the Krillian workers who maintain the bioweapon equipment. If we can contact her during the mission, she might be able to help us reach the main laboratory." The next 3 days were spent in intensive preparation. Human technicians created explosive devices that could be disguised as normal equipment. Elf mages worked with Dr. Rebecca Stone to develop invisibility spells that would work in the fortress's high-technology environment. Krillian engineers provided detailed maps of the facility's internal structure. Maya chose her team carefully. She would lead the mission herself, along with Ellerin and 2 of her best rangers, Zarath and 3 Krillian warriors who had defected from the Council, and Colonel Amy Foster with a squad of human Special Forces soldiers. The captured Council transport ship looked exactly like a normal supply vessel from the outside, but hidden inside its cargo bay were weapons, explosives, and equipment that could slice through the strongest defenses. The ship's computer systems had been modified with elf crystal technology that would fool any scanner. As they approached Garrison Prime, Maya felt her heart racing with nervous energy. The fortress was a massive structure that floated in space, like a mechanical planet. Its dark metal surfaces were covered with weapon emplacements and shield generators. Patrol ships moved around it in careful patterns, scanning everything that came near. "Council Control, this is transport vessel Grey Star requesting permission to dock," Ellerin said into the communication system. Her magic made her voice sound exactly like a Dominion pilot. "Grey Star, you are cleared for landing Bay 7, came the reply. "Proceed directly to docking station and prepare for cargo inspection." The transport ship settled into the fortress docking bay without attracting attention. Maya and her team waited in the cargo hold, wearing Council uniforms and carrying identification. That would pass casual inspection. The real test would come when they had to move through the fortress corridors without being recognized. "Remember the plan," Maya whispered to her team. We have 4 hours before the shift change reveals we're not supposed to be here. Hit the bioweapon labs, plant the charges, and get back to the ship before anyone notices." They moved through the fortress in small groups using maintenance tunnels and service corridors that Zarath remembered from the original construction. The Krillian's memory was perfect, and she guided them through the maze of passages without a single wrong turn. The bioweapon laboratory was worse than Maya had imagined. Huge tanks filled with green liquid contained viruses designed to attack human genetic codes specifically. Computer displays showed progress reports on different strains, each one more deadly than the last. These weapons could kill every human in the galaxy within weeks, Zarath said with horror in her voice. "We must destroy everything." That's when they heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Council guards were making their regular patrol rounds. Maya's team hid behind the laboratory equipment as 6 Dominion soldiers walked past the doorway. "Talanis should be in the next section," Zarath whispered. "If we can reach her, she can help us access the main computer systems." They found Talanis, Keth working alone in a computer room filled with blinking displays. She was smaller than Zarath, with dark blue coloring on her crystalline shell. When she saw her former commander, her 4 eyes widened with surprise and joy. "Zarath, you came back," Talanis said softly. "I have been waiting for the chance to strike against the Council. Can you help us destroy the bioweapon data?" Maya asked urgently. Talanis nodded and moved to the main computer terminal. Her clawed fingers danced across the controls with incredible speed. "I can do more than destroy the data. I can make the computers think there was a system malfunction that caused a massive explosion. The Council will believe their own equipment failed." As Talanis worked, alarms suddenly began sounding throughout the fortress. Maya realized their time was up. Somehow, the Council had discovered that intruders were inside the facility. "The charges are set," Colonel Amy Foster reported through her communication device. "But the docking bay is crawling with guards now. We're trapped." Maya looked at Ellerin and Zarath, then at the bioweapon tanks that could destroy her entire species. There was only one choice left to make. "Talanis, how long until the charges detonate?" Maya asked. 15 minutes, the Krillian replied. "Then we fight our way out," Maya decided. "And we make sure the Council remembers this day." The battle for the fortress docking bay became the stuff of legends across the galaxy. Captain Maya Torres led her mixed-species team through corridors filled with Council soldiers, while explosions echoed from the bioweapon laboratories below. Ellerin Swift Arrow's rangers moved like shadows, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Colonel Amy Foster's human soldiers used tactics that confused and frustrated the Dominion guards, who had never faced such creative warfare. Admiral Katie Brooks arrived with the main resistance fleet just as the fortress began to tear itself apart. Katie commanded a force of 200 ships from 6 different species, the largest fleet ever assembled against Council authority. Her flagship was the converted human cargo vessel Freedom's Light, now bristling with weapons that combined the best technology from all resistance members. "All ships concentrate fire on the fortress shield generators," Katie ordered as her fleet engaged the Council defenders. "We need to extract our people before this place becomes a debris field." The rescue mission became a running battle through space as Council reinforcements arrived from 3 nearby star systems. But the Resistance had learned to fight as a unified force. Human ships provided covering fire while elf vessels used their speed to confuse enemy targeting systems. Krillian bioships regenerated damage faster than Council weapons could inflict it. Inside the fortress, Maya's team fought their way toward the docking bay where their transport ship waited. Talanis Keth had joined them after destroying the bioweapon computer systems, and her knowledge of the fortress layout proved crucial for avoiding the heaviest guard concentrations. 2 minutes until the charges detonate, Zarath reported as they reached the final corridor before the docking bay. After that, this entire section will be uninhabitable. The docking bay was filled with Council soldiers who had orders to prevent any ship from leaving. But Maya had one final surprise prepared. Dr. Rebecca Stone's latest invention was a small device that could project elf illusion magic enhanced by human technology. When activated, it made Maya's team appear to be Council reinforcements arriving to help defend the fortress. "Stand aside," Ellerin commanded in perfect Dominion language as she led the disguised team toward their ship. "We have orders to evacuate critical personnel immediately." The deception worked long enough for them to reach their transport. But as the ship's engines came online, the fortress shook with the first of many explosions. The bioweapon laboratories were destroying themselves according to Talanis's programming, and the massive structure began to break apart. Maya watched through the ship's windows as they escaped into space. Behind them, Garrison Prime Fortress was splitting into pieces. Like a broken toy, green clouds of destroyed bioweapons mixed with debris and flames, creating a spectacular display that could be seen from orbit. "This is Admiral Katie Brooks to all Resistance vessels," came the announcement over the communication system. "Mission accomplished. All teams returned to designated rally points." But even as they celebrated the destruction of the bioweapons, Maya knew the war was far from over. The loss of Garrison Prime would make the Council desperate, and desperate enemies were the most dangerous kind. 3 days later, Maya stood in the new Resistance Command Center on the liberated world of New Hope. The planet had been a human colony before the blockade, but now it was home to refugees from dozens of species who had chosen freedom over Council rule. High Priestess Galadriel Lightbringer had arrived that morning with a fleet of 300 elf ships, bringing news that would change everything. Galadriel was ancient even by elf standards, with silver-white hair that flowed like liquid starlight and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. "The Elf Collective has made its decision," Galadriel announced to the assembled Resistance leaders. "We formally withdraw all support from the Galactic Council and offer our full military assistance to the Resistance movement." The addition of the Elf fleet doubled the Resistance's military strength overnight. But more importantly, it sent a message to other species that the Council's power was crumbling. Within hours of Galadriel's announcement, messages began arriving. From across the galaxy, the Etherian Empire declared neutrality and opened their space lanes to Resistance ships. The Zephyrian Federation offered to provide intelligence about Council fleet movements. Even some Dominion colonies began sending secret messages expressing support for the Resistance cause. But the most important message came from Queen Mother, Zelnara, the supreme leader of the Krillian Hive. Her face appeared on the main communication screen, showing features that were both beautiful and alien. Her crystalline shell was decorated with patterns that marked her as royalty among her people. "Commander Zareth Vel has shown me the truth about Council plans for genocide," Zelnara announced in her melodic, clicking voice. "The Krillian Hive will no longer serve as soldiers for those who would destroy entire species. We withdraw from the Galactic Council and offer our ships to defend the innocent." Maya felt tears in her eyes as she realized what this meant. The Krillian military was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. With them as allies, the Resistance now had a real chance of victory. The final battle came 2 months later at the Council's capital system of Nexus Prime. Admiral Katie Brooks commanded a fleet of over 1,000 ships from 8 different species. Maya stood on the bridge of the Freedom's Light as they approached the massive space station that had been the center of galactic government for centuries. High Chancellor Vextar made one last attempt to maintain his authority. His face appeared on communication screens throughout both fleets, showing the strain of recent defeats. His gray skin was marked with stress lines, and his black eyes held the desperate fury of a tyrant losing power. "You are destroying the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for 1,000 years, Vextar accused. "Without the Council's guidance, the species will return to the chaos of ancient wars." Maya stepped forward to respond, speaking for all. The Resistance fighters who had risked everything for freedom. "The peace you speak of was built on fear and oppression. Today we build something better. A galaxy where species work together as equals, not subjects." The battle for Nexus Prime lasted 18 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Resistance had learned to fight as one people with many voices, while the remaining Council forces were demoralized and divided. When the Council station's shields finally fell, Vextar activated the self-destruct sequence rather than face capture. But Krillian engineers had predicted this move and disabled the weapon systems before they could fire. Maya walked through the empty Council chambers with representatives from all the Resistance species. The circular room where the Council had made decisions for centuries was silent now, its high walls covered with symbols from species that had chosen freedom over control. "So what happens now?" asked Ellerin Swiftarrow as she studied the abandoned Council throne. "Now we build the Galactic Alliance," Maya replied. A government where every species has an equal voice and no one group can dominate the others. 6 months later, Maya stood in the same chamber wearing the uniform of Supreme Commander of the Alliance Defense Force. Around her sat representatives from 23 species, all working together to create laws that protected the rights of everyone in the galaxy. Through the great windows of the station, she could see ships from dozens of worlds working together to explore new star systems. Human crews served alongside elf navigators and Krillian engineers, learning from each other and building a future that none of them could have imagined alone. The Council had tried to silence Earth, thinking that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed freedom. But that had been just the beginning of a story that ended with the entire galaxy choosing liberty over oppression. In the end, the greatest victory was not the defeat of the Council fleets or the capture of their capital. It was the proof that different species could work together as equals, each bringing their unique strengths to solve problems that none could handle alone. The stars outside seemed brighter now, full of possibilities that had not existed when humanity was trapped behind Council barriers. Maya smiled as she watched exploration ships disappear into hyperspace, carrying mixed crews toward adventures that would write the next chapter of galactic history. The war was over, but the real work of building a better galaxy was just beginning.